Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Explorer Showcase. I'm delighted to have you all here with us. Today's format will be uniquely streamlined to bring you 5 compelling exploration stories back to back. Each company will have a focused 15-minute window to present their latest developments and opportunities. I'll be moderating throughout the session to ensure we stay on schedule and maintain a smooth flow between presentations. While we won't have time for a live Q&A session, I encourage you to ask questions and our team will pass them along to the respective companies post-event. Our presenters today include Kupani Metals, Harvest Gold, Northern Shield Resources, Pinnacle Silver and Gold Corp, and Cascade Copper, each bringing their own unique story to the showcase. For those who might miss any details, don't worry, the session is being recorded and the replay will be available shortly after we conclude. So let's begin with our first presenter. Brian, if you could please join me on stage, and I will share my screen for the deck here.
Hi, everyone.
So, Brian Boss, CEO and Director of Kupani Metals. With 30 years in commodities and public equity experience, Brian has a strong track record in corporate restructuring and value creation. I'm going to be quiet now, though, and I'll let Brian start his 15 minutes.
Okay, thanks very much. Yeah, I've set a timer for 15 minutes. I want to respect the audience's time and then all the other presenters behind me. And this speed dating over lunch hour actually is a really good idea, Kyle. So thanks for coming up with this. The company is called Kupani. Last night I gave a dinner presentation, ran about 40 minutes and had 40 slides. For this, I've done a lot of cutting, and so the deck you're going to see here is a shorter one, but I think we've kept all the exploration excitement in the deck. So where are we? Well, first of all, what are we looking for? Copper, nickel. There's also platinum and palladium in it, and there's a historical tonnage drilled off in the 1980s with just under 5 million tons of 2.2% copper equivalent. That copper equivalent is made up, it's basically all just under half copper, the other half is nickel, and then the platinum palladium comes up for the rest. So where are we? We're in Quebec. We are in northern Quebec. The nearest town is called Schefferville. Schefferville was built in the 1950s by the Iron Ore Company of Canada. There are open pits up there running to this day, and there's a rail line from Schefferville down to a Atlantic cargo port at Sept-Îles. There's also a hydroelectric dam just south of Schefferville, and that'll come up again later because it could be a really good source of cheap power. It was overbuilt for its needs, and it needs customers now. Anyway, before we move on, I'll say that Quebec is a great jurisdiction. We really like working in Quebec. And let's move to the next slide. Okay, so this is an image of northern Quebec and also some parts of Labrador. This is not our image. We took this from a government report published jointly by the Geology Services of Quebec, Newfoundland, and the federal government. And what they did to create this map, and they released this in 2015, was they did about 38,000 samples of lake beds and riverbeds all over the north. And then they took that data they took that sampling to the lab and created a heat map of where is there copper, and they did another map for nickel. It looks very much the same. Where is there copper in the watershed? Of course, the key for exploration is if you find copper in the lakes and rivers, you have to ask yourself where it came from. And so the large red blob you see in the center of the screen where the copper is the hottest, that's us. And once we saw this government report, we ran over to the Quebec database, and if we go to the next slide, you'll see we've taken the raw data from that government report and we've mapped it onto the Quebec staking database called GESTEM. And we asked our software to show us everything where the copper in the watershed is greater than 200 parts per million, and then we staked everything in that envelope that was open for staking. So we have a huge land package. It's very deliberate. We're a very small company, so there's a huge amount of exploration upside to the stock price here. And we have over 500 square kilometers. And now on this map here, you can see the background, the grid, that's our staked claims. You can also see the isobars of copper in the watershed. And if you zoom in a little bit, or if you look hard in the center of the screen, you'll see there is a red rectangular box that's a little bit tilted down this way. That rectangular box represents the geographic space at surface for the nearly 5 million tons of 2.2% copper equivalent that was drilled off in the 1980s. But as you can see, that spot is not even the hottest spot for copper in the region, nor is it the only spot. There's at least 5 other, maybe 7, depending on how you do it, really good indications that there's a source of copper somewhere that is leaching into the water. And that is why we wanted to lock up the whole darn thing. We didn't want to focus on one and then discover that we missed something else that's great. So this is an immense project. We're a small company, and we're going to get a lot out of this. Now, I'll take a moment here before we go to our next slide and talk about who we are. Our head of geology is a gentleman named Douglas McCory. If you're a regular Six follower, you'll probably be familiar with his prior company, Asante Gold. Douglas started Asante from nothing. It is now 3 operating gold mines in the country of Ghana. He is retired from Asante, and he is now working on this. In fact, he likes it so much, he bought just about 20% of the company. And if you think that's good, I own 30%. So between management, Douglas is on the board. So between the board members, we have about 55% of the shares. We paid for them with cash. My own cost is 6 cents a share. Douglas's is probably 7 or 8 cents a share. Friends and family of ours, people who've made money with us in our past stories, are also big shareholders. We have 117 million shares out, but as I like to say, we can have our AGM in a minivan because it's very, very, very tightly held. All right, next slide, please. Okay, I see we have 8 minutes left, so I'll have to speed up. Exploration is never easy. How are we going to find more of this tonnage? The rock that we're looking for, and we already know the type of rock we're looking for because, like I said, it was drilled off in the 80s. It's magnetic. There's a high and a low conductivity for when it's disseminated and when it's not. It's heavier than the surrounding rock, and so far, everywhere that there is a surface sample, there is something underneath. And that is because this area was very heavily glaciated for a long time. 10,000 years ago, there were glaciers left. And the surface rock has been weathered away, which of course fits with what you see. How are you getting the copper and nickel into this lake beds and streams? It's because it's coming from what is now surface rock. So everywhere we've been, and even above the historical tonnage is 2.2% copper equivalent. But if you pick up a rock at surface, that's about 1. So it's about half. And so we keep looking for surface samples, and we have an immense amount of surface samples. Next slide, please. All right, this image is from an adit that was driven into the historical tonnage in 1987. And the company that did this was focused on platinum and palladium. In the 1980s, precious metals were a very, very big thing. So they drove a 350-meter adit into one of the large pods that constitutes the 5 million tons. They got all the heavy equipment in. They took it by rail up to Shefferville, and then they drove out across an ice road to reach where we are here in the photo. And they pulled out all their tonnages. They mapped the grades, piled them up, and marked them. And so you can see there's probably, I'll call it 22 tons of material here, which we have then sampled again when we started to work really hard on this project in 2024 after spending 10 years consolidating it. There's some great samples on there. The best piece of rock we pulled just by walking through that area was 7% copper. Obviously, that's not representative, but there's a lot to be found here. We're very excited. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so that image I just showed you, again, part of the historical tonnage. And on this map, the historical tonnages are within the hand-drawn shapes that you see in the middle of the screen, and they each have a name. So there's Blue Lake 1 all the way through to Blue Lake 6, and on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a hand-drawn area called Center 1 and Center 2, and there's something called Pogo. So those are the delineations as known in the 1980s. And then what we're showing you underneath and around is gravimetric high responses. This is where there's heavier mass underneath the earth than anyone knows how to explain. And the expectation is, and we have to prove this by drilling, that that heavier mass is caused by the copper and the nickel. So 5 million tons is a nice start. That's what we have historically. But as you can see here, there could be many multiples of 5 million tons to be had here. And we have a huge amount of land. I'm only showing you one of our 5 zones. And we're going to be doing gravity over a lot of places, magnetic response over a lot of places. Next slide, please. All right, here's another one of those places. What I'm showing you now is 10 miles away from what I just showed you. This is an area that was flown by Anglo American for electromagnetic responses in the year 2013 when they had this project. And they found a lot of magnetic responses, but they never bothered to go check it out in person. And nobody went there until we sent a crew in September of 2024. And we have found that 9 kilometers long so far, continuous mineralization at surface of copper, nickel, and the surface grades we're getting are about 1%, which leads us to hope that there's 2 or change or something underneath. It's never been drilled, and it's going to be a priority target for us in 2025. And for those gold fans in the room, there is an unexpected just under 2 grams per ton at surface. So we're going to definitely follow how that got there. Next slide, please. All right, this is a photo of what I've just shown you on that map, that large U shape. And I've shown this photo to demonstrate a couple things. One, it's a hilltop, which means if we ever get to mining it, it's really good. You don't have to do a overburden or a pit to get to the good stuff. Second, the mineralization is under 1 foot of soil. And in this image, we're looking at one end of a 40-foot long trench that is going off into the distance here of the photo. And you can also see a white sled-looking thing to the edge of this trench, and that is a beep mat, and that's how we've mapped out the 9 kilometers so far. We expect it's actually a lot longer than 9 kilometers, but the beep map can only go down through about 10 feet of soil. So once the soil gets a little deeper than that, we just stop counting, and we'll go back and trench or something this year. Next slide, please. Here's another image from that same spot, and the key takeaway here is there's about 2 feet of soil there. And underneath that is our 1% copper hand sample. And we believe that beneath that rock, we're hoping to find 2%, 2 and change. And it's 10 kilometers long. It's 15 meters wide at surface. And the great question is, how deep is it? We'll find out. Next slide. All right. This is what we have in the bag so far. This is how we make up the nearly 5 million tons of 2.28% copper equivalent. And that's how we know, quote, the land is pregnant. We're just looking for the baby, and we're hoping it's triplets. Next slide, please. Okay, it's never too early. It's never too early to consider the business model. I mean, finding something is fantastic, but if you find it somewhere that it's too expensive to build, you're not really doing a service for shareholders. So the next couple of slides are going to touch on that. So open pit's been happening in this region since the 1950s. Local infrastructure is excellent. The Iron Ore Company of Canada in the 1950s built a hydroelectric dam with 4 turbine slots in it. They only ever installed 3 turbines. That dam is now owned by the Newfoundland Hydro Corporation. They bought it for $1. They have no customers except the people who live in Shefferville. That dam is not connected to the Quebec provincial grid, nor is it connected to the Labrador Newfoundland grid. So they're looking for customers, and we want to be one. We think we'll get cheap power there. Next slide.
Just final minute, Brian.
Okay, next slide. Okay, this is even better. This is a map of average wind speeds in Quebec. The reason why this is in here is because the 2025 exploration camp will be wind powered, and the winds are so strong there and so consistent. There's a possibility, this is a calculation for some later year, but you'll be able to run a mining operation on a wind power farm with battery backup and then natural gas generators behind that, again, which would really improve the economics. If you're interested in this, give me a call. There's my phone number. We've got lots of documents up on the public databases, and there's my email. My timer just went off.
Perfect. Excellent timing. Thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate it. We'll relay anyone that's interested. Feel free to mention in the chat, but thank you so much for your time, Brian.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Let me just switch slides here to our next individual I see he's joined me on stage. Hello, Rick. Just for the audience, this is Rick Mark, President and CEO of Harvest Gold. Rick brings over 3 decades of public market experience and proven success in corporate development and financing. I will start the clock now. You just tell me next slide when you're ready to rock and roll.
Thanks, Kyle. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. Excuse me. So we'll take 15 minutes here to go through an edited version of our brand new corporate presentation, introducing you to Harvest Gold, symbol HVG, on the stock exchange in Vancouver, and taking a look at what we're looking for in gold in Quebec. I noted, Kyle, this morning gold hit another high. I believe it's 26.87, somewhere in that range. So a remarkable time to be looking for gold. And I think, as you'll see, we're in the right place in Quebec to find that. So we can move through that. This full presentation, by the way, is on the website, on the homepage, harvestgoldcorp.com. So we're in the Abitibi. We like this screen because it really shows you we're in the right place. This is an area, a geological area known around the world for big and well-developed rich mines. Go ahead, Kyle. So we're going to jump right into where we are in Quebec. This is called the Urban Barry Deformation Zone. The area in the middle, highlighted with all the gold, is the Windfall deposit, which has just been bought along with the exploration ground around it by Gold Fields. They paid Osisko Mining $4 billion. And on the left, you'll notice along the structural breaks are 3 major properties, and you can see the substantial size of the properties. Below is a geology map to give you a sense of that. Most of you won't understand it. It's not something I look at regularly. Fortunately, we have a great team to help me with that. But I think the next map is significant in understanding why we're happy to be here. When Gold Fields took out Osisko, the land they own in this belt is in purple. So we're really saying to the market, we're surrounded by gold fields. We've met with their geological team. They're all represented by Osisko Mining guys who have been in the belt for 10 years. They asked for the meeting. Of course, they look at the map and they know we exist, which is very important. So I think more than anything else, as we look at this at the outset and just beginning our work in this past year, our land position is significant. The next slide, it will help you understand a little bit more about it. This is a geology map. And the quote on the right, I think, is quite important. Harvest Gold has assembled a 3-property district scale opportunity covering the contact between the Wilson, Pluton, and volcanics. Now, you'll see again in future slides how we refer to this as a through-going structure. And what that means is the Urban Barry Belt itself and the through-going structure that arcs through Mousseau and Labelle at the bottom of the screen That's as our lead geologist calls it, strike length. We have 50 kilometers of strike length through these three properties, and that's where the gold occurs. Okay, Kyle. Location advantages, Brian talked a little bit about. Quebec, certainly as a jurisdiction, it's fantastic. I think it's rated 7th in the world by our friends out here at the Fraser Institute. But more importantly for us inside that, we're right on the roadway. There's no need to stay at a motel. We can drive to the properties. The access roads are fantastic all the way down to the Windfall deposit itself. So that means we get access 12 months of the year, and our drilling costs are significantly lower. The geological setting on the right, you could take a look at this in detail, but I think, needless to say, historical work on the northern part of the Mousseau property has given us a great deal of information upon which we can create drill targets, 49 significant surface gold showings identified to date. So we know there's gold in the neighborhood, and specifically on Mousseau, our flagship property. Good look here at what it looks like on the ground, easily visible. One of our geologists pointed out as he looked at this map originally, most of the exploration has been done within 25 kilometers of the road. The fires last year, well, obviously a disaster for Quebec in many ways, actually helped us because they've taken a lot of the overgrowth away and the rocks are available. Much of this property has never been walked on. Thanks, Kyle. Now you can't see this. You'll have to take a look at the presentation on the website, but this gives you the significant showings both on surface and in drill intersections. All of these are excuse me, more than 2 grams a ton. Again, I think it just speaks to the gold endowment that we know is on the northern part of the Mousseau property. And I encourage you to take a look at that in detail. There is some core, as you can see. Geologists love the look of this. There's continuity. The sample on the right is about 5.4 grams per ton. And again, the type of structure in the rocks that's holding the gold is what our geologists are looking for. This gives you a look at a drill intersection. The good news here is the continuity. It's open at depth where we see 4.42 grams per ton across 7 meters. This really has not been explored at depth yet, and that's what we intend to do in our first drill program. Thanks, Kyle. This is the work we did this year, and I think it really begins to show you the difference in using today's exploration techniques versus those in the past. On the left is a small helicopter flying 50 kilometers above the property. On the right is what the government did 30 years ago. So it's dramatic in its intensity, which of course provides us better information. Next slide. This is a good look at what the mag shows us, the high resolution survey. You can see these bands of high mag intensity. It's layered over the northern part of the Mousseau property where most of the historical work has been done. The gold showings and intercepts are marked with the triangles. You'll notice on the right that long string of gold showings runs along a mag high. Obviously, that's a clue for our geologists. They got very excited about the notion of a dilution zone here where there's intersections of structures and gold forms. We just don't know what's below the surface where there's many gold showings. So this is something that I think as those of you who are interested in the geological end of exploration can reach out to us and dig in, and we'd be certainly happy to walk through the presentation with you. Next slide. Another look at what we've done in the central section. We've covered it with prospecting and geochemistry. We're expecting those results any day. Next slide. You get another look here to show you that prospecting is easy and rock is showing all over the property. Thanks, Kyle. We have two other properties, and quickly I'll mention them. Urban Barry is on the belt itself, 69 kilometers squared. Really perfect because it's exactly what the Goldfields people have been working on for the last 20 years. We have 20 kilometers of strike length on that, absolutely unexplored at this point. Next slide. And then down below the LaBelle property, at another 9 kilometers of strike length. We stake this ourselves, and so we have very little obligation to that for the first 2 years as we work on Mousseau and first Urban Barry. I do want to mention the geological team, as Brian mentioned before. No company operates without an excellent team. The depth here is remarkable. I've worked with these guys in the case of Neil Richardson for 25 years, Warren for 10, Pat for 10, Henry for the last 5, and Louis Martin on the left is our lead man in Quebec, has a remarkable set of experiences in the Abitibi. So you can have confidence that this geological team is top notch. Management team, Pat and Len and I have all run junior companies over the last 25 years. And Chris and Ed deliver services to us on the board as CFO and our independent director who's had compliance experience. So the board operates very effectively. Decisions are made quickly. The money goes into the ground. So again, you can take a look at the advantages that Harvest Gold has. We can own 100% of these 3 properties. We've made what I think are shareholder favorable deals, particularly for Mousseau with our partner Vior, who, by the way, has just raised 24 million and are raising another 20, have been effectively taken over in a friendly way. The new management is from Osisko. They are a tremendous partner with a great deal of information and experience to share with us in this belt. I mentioned the power of working in the same space as Goldfields. A takeout partner is built in. They're working on the Windfall deposit as we speak. Again, I'll just mention that our team has been here, done that. Quebec's the right place to play. So when you're looking at why would you invest in a company like Harvest, discovery is what makes you money at this end of the business. We have a tremendous land package. We're on strike. We're in a gold endowed area. We have a favorable government working around us. We work for less money than almost anywhere else I've ever seen because of the ease of access and the experience. Something like $200 a meter for drilling, all in. It's remarkable. And as I mentioned, we've got the takeout waiting for us as Goldfields watches us develop around us. When we had VMS Ventures in the 2000s, our first financing was done at 6 cents. After our first significant drill program, we did our next financing and raised $20 million at $1.50. That's the arc discovery investing gives you. You have to have confidence in the geological proposition and the team running the exploration to find the gold. And I think in Harvest Gold, you can find that. We have one more, Kyle. Yeah, that's it. So I'll leave it there. I rushed through it because I know we're tight for time here. I think I have 1 more minute. I encourage you to get in touch with me. You can respond to the email we'll send out to you tomorrow. I think that's the best way. I'm happy to talk with you directly. I'm happy to set up a meeting with the Geo team if you'd like to go through the full investor deck. And I say again, it's now on the front page of the website at harvestgoldcorp.com. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you, Mark. Great presentation. Enjoy the rest of your day. Eh?
Cheers.
Take care now. I will stop sharing my screen because our next panelist, Ian Bliss, here will be doing his own presentation. So, like I said, joining us is Ian Bliss, CEO of Northern Shield Resources, with a strong background in geology and exploration. Ian has guided successful partnerships with major mining companies and leads Northern Shield's exciting gold exploration at Root and Cellar. I'm going to go off screen here, Ian, but best of luck, and I'm going to start the timer now.
Thanks very much, Kyle, for that introduction, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to an update on the Root and Cellar project in Newfoundland. The customary forward-looking statement advisory. Northern Shield is exploring the Root and Cellar property located in the Burin Peninsula of Newfoundland for epithermal gold, silver, and tellurium and related porphyry copper. The project is located in the Avalon Terrane, which is the same geological terrain that hosts the 4 million ounce gold deposit at Hale in North Carolina, just down the seaboard, and is broadly similar to BC's Golden Triangle that hosts numerous Tier 1 gold and copper assets like Brucejack, KSM, and we've heard a lot about Goliath recently. But whereas the BC's Golden Triangles have been explored and even mined for the better part of a century, the Avalon Terrane has only seen a few decades at best. And in the case of Root and Cellar, has seen no exploration whatsoever until Northern Shield optioned the property from a local prospector in 2019. Indeed, there wasn't even a usable regional magnetic map of the Burin when we first started working at Root and Cellar. So you can imagine the opportunities of being the first to explore such a region. All explorers want to find giant ore deposits, including Northern Shield. But the notion of a giant ore deposit must be supported by geology and geological conditions that are conducive to forming such giant ore deposits. So the question we asked ourselves fairly early on was, is Root and Cellar an elephant country when it comes to epithermal gold and porphyry copper? And very early on in the process of our research at Root and Cellar, we noticed that Root and Cellar is located in a zone of structural extension that crosscuts the Burin Peninsula. This made it stand out from everything else in the Avalon Terrane, as the Avalon Terrane was created by a collisional event when this is an extension. And this is not just an academic matter, as such zones of extension provide ideal opportunities for large-scale magmatic activity. Large-scale magmatic activity leads to large-scale hydrothermal activity, particularly what is known as alkaline-related systems. And these systems are highly sought after because they're associated with very large gold deposits and tellurium. Yet despite the recent discoveries in Newfoundland that have underscored the province's capacity for hosting major deposits, the Avalon and the Burin Peninsula are vastly underexplored. But we at Northern Shield have been quite fine with that, as it's allowed us to quietly unravel the complexities of a system that exhibit all the characteristics of both a high-grade and large tonnage epithermal system. And we believe we're on the verge of confirming that this portion of the Burin Peninsula is indeed elephant country when it comes to epithermal gold deposits. The main portion of the Root and Cellar property hosts one large area of copper mineralization in a porphyry-style setting and 5 gold showings. The largest of these gold showings and the focus of our exploration to date and the focus of this presentation is a conquest zone there in the center. That conquest zone appears to overprint one of the pre-existing copper porphyry systems on the property. But what really sets Root and Cellar apart is its association with tellurium. Tellurium is a critical metal as it's a key component of solar panels. It's also one of the rarest elements on the planet, and as an example, is 8 times more rare than gold. Its primary source is as a byproduct of a handful of similar epithermal gold, silver, and copper porphyry deposits like we have at Root and Cellar. There's no standalone tellurium mine in the world right now. 90% of the world's tellurium is currently mined in China. Second biggest producer is the United States at only 5%. But why? Well, the reason why I like tellurium and the reason why you should like tellurium is it's often associated with very large and high-grade epithermal gold deposits and any related copper porphyry. And so this association positions the project as a promising investment opportunity for those looking to capitalize on the demand for critical metals and leverage by a large-scale and high-grade precious metal deposit. But even in large epithermal systems, it can be challenging to vector into the heart of the system where the higher grades are expected. And so in 2023, we returned to the site of the initial discovery trench and followed this up with further mechanical trenching and then ultimately a small 600-meter drill program designed to test a near-surface IP target. In that drill program, 7 of our 8 holes in 2023 intersected mineralization, supporting epithermal gold mineralization. 3 of those holes contain visible gold. We found about another 10 occurrences in outcrop through mechanical trenching with grades of up to 78 grams per ton gold in grab samples. But the drilling, together with the surface sampling over the past year and a half, have delineated a zone of near continuous gold mineralization measuring about 100 meters long and 35 meters wide. It includes broad zones of low-grade mineralization, as an example, 34.5 meters in drill core, averaging 0.6, with a lot of sporadic high grade, up to 23.5 grams per ton. And although most of the mineralization, particularly east, is hosted in hydrothermal breccias, we do start seeing evidence of crustiform coliform banded quartz veins, and that begins to hint of proximity to the boiling zone. But despite the successful drill program, we still do not fully understand where we were in these systems, and these systems can be quite complex. The past few years, as many of you know, have been very tough on the junior miners, more so those that are in early stage, like Northern Shield at Root and Cellar. And with lean budgets, advancing the project was once again a challenge. But we felt that tough times breeds innovation, and we relied heavily on our model-driven approach to exploration, and aided with the engagement of an MSc thesis student, we found a way to advance the project. And our understanding of the project now, we now have a clear and confident understanding of where the upflow zone is, and that upflow zone will mark the top of one of the main vein systems. This was accomplished by identifying the hydrothermal breccias in the package, geyser-like sediments, and brecciated sinter mound fragments. And all these was accomplished by revisiting and relogging drill core, paying careful attention to the field, and remapping those stripped outcrops. The physical identification of these textures that we saw on surface and in drill core was independently supported by some very innovative application of geochemical work and geochemical plots as a proxy for these alteration minerals common in epithermal systems. This was all undertaken by the MSc thesis student, and a very similar approach was made at the Waihi epithermal gold mine in New Zealand. And the student applied the same method as others applied at Waihi, and he applied it to the data at Root Cellar, and it very, very clearly highlights the discovery trench area as a sinter mound and upflow zone, and so provided a very clear vector to where we may find the veins. I say the identification of this upflow zone is very important, as it not only provides a vector to where the top of the vein systems are, but it indicates that the surface we have right now is equivalent to the paleo surface. So although this thing is about 300 to 500 million years old, we're right down to the paleo surface, so nothing has been eroded. And it's important, again, to identify these sinter zones, because it was the intersection of a sinter at the Fruta del Norte mine in Ecuador that directly led to that discovery back in 2006. So I've just very quickly run over this method of geochemical plots, but I encourage you to look at our other presentations online that show this in more detail. I say it's very, very excellent data that the student has worked on, and has provided a great deal of confidence in moving forward. And so we now know, through all that work, the geochemistry, the textures, we now know where we are in the system, and we're at the very top of an epithermal system. We see the sinter mound, we see the breccias, we see the hot spring sediments, and these breccias, particularly at Waihi, New Zealand, often form an umbrella over the main veins. And so we're right at the very top of the system. So the presence of so much gold, including the visible gold, is very significant, because you should not be seeing that amount of gold in the sinter mound, which is essentially above the boiling window. So the presence of VG in the high grades bodes very well as to what we expect to find deeper down in the system in the boiling zone. But what we don't know is where the boiling zone starts. At Fruta del Norte, for example, it starts immediately below the sinter. You go to Fresnillo in Mexico as another example, that gap between the sinter mound and the vein is 300 meters. So we don't know really where it starts at Root and Cellar yet. But boiling, which is what causes gold precipitation in epithermal systems, is created by a drop in pressure. A lot of people think it's caused by increase in temperature. It's caused by a drop in pressure. And in epithermal systems, really two ways you get that drop in pressure. Number one, you get hot fluids rising up the fault zone, interacting with cold water in the water table. That creates flash steaming. That steaming creates an explosion of the rock, and that drops the pressure. That pressure drops creates boiling, which creates gold precipitation. But that only happens at this interface at the water table. So your boiling window, and hence your gold precipitation, is fairly short in depth extent. But in extension regimes like we now have at Root and Cellar, if the rock sequence is suddenly pulled apart by an extensive regime, by just pulling apart like a block, this creates a drop in pressure from the top of the structure to the bottom of the structure. And so if that fault zone is filled with hot fluid, you're now getting boiling, as I say, from the top of the system to the bottom. And so in the extension of sectional regimes like we now know we have at Root and Cellar, you have the ability to form very deep boiling windows. And the concept of that, great depth extent and those deep boiling zones is manifest in the magnetics. This main image on the right is a cross-section of the magnetic inversion model representing about 1,000 meters of rocks. And you clearly see the magnetic glow marked by the blue and the purples, that the gold on surface is directly related to these magnetic glows. And we see these magnetic glows, discordant features, so structure and control go into depth. These coincide with IP anomalies as indicated by these red lines. And so we've got IP matching magnetic glows, and the magnetic glows match the gold on the surface. So the idea of having very deep boiling windows and gold precipitation is supported, in this case, by cross-sections of the geophysics. But whereas that previous slide showed the depth extent potential of Root and Cellar, this map really highlights the aerial extent. And so much of the presentation that is focused on the small area here of the Discovery outcrop of the Sinter Mound, you can see that's only a tiny fraction of the 4 square kilometers where we're getting gold mineralization, both in rock, bedrock, boulders, and these 3 boulders up to 111 grams per ton. We still haven't found the source, so they're very local. We see gold dispersion trains in soils. And again, we haven't found a source for gold, so there's more gold to be found. So I say, whereas a previous slide showed the depth extent potential was significant, this now highlights the aerial extent, the very large footprint of gold mineralization that we have. A lot of these samples are not not actually in the epithermal system there where gold is leaked up at depth from the main epithermal veins. And so, as I mentioned, Root and Cellar is a complete greenfield exploration project. When we first optioned the property, there wasn't even a regional magnetic map of the Burin Peninsula. And while such early stage projects pose a challenge and a risk, we see it as an opportunity, and that's an opportunity to discover a tier 1 asset at or near surface, simply because no one has ever looked at it before. And we use a model-driven approach to reduce that risk, and it's ideally suited in this circumstance. But many of you who have been involved in early stage exploration are aware of the feeling that, especially early on, there are more questions than answers, and it's frustrating not understanding the geology and the model in its entirety. Knowing that one day you're going to look back at this with hindsight and say, wow, that was obvious. But what I can tell you is we are just about at that stage now. Through diligent, detailed, and innovative analysis, a lot of little things have been gleaned over the past year and a half that have added up and created a robust and confident exploration model. Each individual item on its own may not seem overly important, but collectively they have a significant impact. Specifically, as you've seen, we have multiple data sets all pointing in the same direction: geochemistry, pathfinders, textures, geology, alteration, geophysics. They all provide a clear vector to the top of one of the vein systems. As well, we've reached that stage, as I mentioned, where knowledge and understanding of the project is now exponential. The more we know, the more we learn. The more we learn, the more we know. And as you can see from the slide, there's a name for that phenomenon. It's called the snowball effect, and it certainly provided a lot of momentum and confidence in our exploration model as we move towards a pivotal drill program coming up very shortly. And so, just to summarize, low sulfidation epithermal gold deposits are renowned for the bonanza grades of gold, silver, tellurium, but are typically associated with relatively small tonnages. With grab samples of up to 111 grams per ton gold, nearly 1,400 grams per ton silver, 700 ppm tellurium, and 10.5% copper, the high grades are very apparent. However, a very select few of these deposits are also associated with very large tonnages. And as you've just seen, a comprehensive exploration model and multiple data sets suggest that Root and Cellar has all those ingredients to be one of those very few giant and high-grade epithermal gold systems. And Northern Shield owns 100% in Root and Cellar. And so, yes, we believe this is elephant country. Thank you very much. I know this is a abbreviated presentation, but you'll find a full presentation on our website, and I'll be happy to answer any questions down the road. So please call or email us at your convenience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ian, and thank you for staying on time. Really much appreciated. Great presentation. You enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll call the next panelist up on screen here. Robert Archer, President and CEO of Pinnacle Silver and Gold Corp. Now, Bob brings over 40 years of mining industry experience and is the co-founder of Great Panther Mining. But I'll let Ian stop his screen share here, and I'll let Robert start.
Okay, there we go. Thanks very much, Kyle. I appreciate the introduction, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today. Let me just share my screen here. And there we go. All right. Can you see that, Kyle?
Not yet. Nope.
Oh, sorry. Clearly I've done something wrong here.
So the share button.
Yeah, I did that, I thought. Missed the other share button.
Perfect. Okay, so if you go to your deck, perfect.
Yeah.
Need to.
There we go. Okay, missed one step.
All
Yeah.
good. All righty.
Okay.
I'm going to set the timer now. Good luck, Bob.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Okay, so Pinnacle Silver and Gold is a bit of a new company in a sense, and we're taking a new approach to exploration and maybe a bit more on the development side. So we're a little bit of a hybrid. We're not pure play exploration, but we are focused on silver and gold in the Americas and at the moment in Mexico and Canada. So as always, I will be making some forward-looking statements and encourage people to do their homework before investing. So as I mentioned, we're just in the process of finalizing an acquisition in the well-known Sierra Madre belt of Mexico. This is a high-grade gold and silver project in a very well-known and prolific district of northwestern Durango called the Potrero Project. And at the same time, we have a past-producing high-grade gold mine in the Red Lake district of northwestern Ontario called Argosy Gold Mine, and right next door to that, an earlier stage project called North Birch, which is essentially an untested gold target, but it's 8 kilometers long and certainly district scale and size. So those are the 3 main projects to focus on at the moment. So when I say that the company is a slightly different approach, we're taking an approach that would allow us to acquire a past-producing mine, bring it back into production fairly quickly, and then try to build the company as much out of cash flow as possible, rather than relying 100% on volatile markets, dilutive financings. And this is a business model that I'm very familiar with because it's essentially the business model we followed with Great Panther. With a lot of success, and as a co-founder in that company back in 2004, we built that from concept through to a mid-tier mining company with at our peak $600 million market cap and $5 share price, and 3 operating mines. First Majestic started around the same time, Endeavour Silver, and they've gone on to be very significant companies in their own right. So this is a successful business model, and we've done it before. We know it works, and so that's what we're focused on right now. The focus is on high-grade underground mines. Quite simply, this is where I spent almost my entire career, spanning 45 years. Underground mines have lower capex, smaller footprints, which is important these days in the sense that it's easier and faster to permit, better from an ESG standpoint. With the higher grades, you have protection against metal price volatility, and the expression that grade is king is really true. There's a lot of built-in protection there. So when I talk about fast tracking to small-scale production, this is something that with the Potrero project in Mexico, we feel that we can potentially be there within a 2 to 3 year time frame, and that's something that's very difficult to do in a lot of other jurisdictions. And I'll explain, why we think we can get there in that case. And while we're doing that, we'll be continuing to conduct brownfields exploration on that project to enlarge the size of the resource base and ultimately prove up the potential of the project and hopefully scale up the actual production and operations itself. And all of that will give us an opportunity to have a solid base from which to look at additional acquisitions and build the company from there. So this is just a first step, sort of a means to an end, if you like. So just looking closer at the Potrero Gold Silver Project, we're in northwestern Durango, as I mentioned. The Sierra Madre is a very prolific trend that extends from southern California right down through into southern Mexico. It's an area that most people are familiar with in the industry, and a lot of very significant gold and silver mines through that trend, and a lot of those just right around us, which I'll get to in a moment. But on a regional scale, it's a great spot to be. A place that I'm very, very familiar with, having worked here for almost 30 years now. And as most people will know, Mexico is the largest silver producer in the world as it stands right now. So just zooming in a little bit, showing where the Potrero project is. It's in what's called the Topia district, and the Topia mine was actually our first acquisition with Great Panther back in 2004, and we had that back in production by 2006. And in the meantime, we acquired the Guanajuato mine in 2005 and had that back on stream by 2006 as well. So taking this approach and bringing the mines back on stream is a very quick way to start building the company and looking at further acquisitions and discoveries and so on. And so within this district, we're only about 13 kilometers from Topia. We're about 15, 16 kilometers from the Tahuehueto mine, which is owned by Luca Mining. And then down to the southeast, we're on trend with Cienega mine, which is a polymetallic mine owned by Fresnillo. And that's a 4,000 ton underground operation, one of the largest underground mines in Mexico. So we have 4 operating mines within a 35 kilometer radius. So it's a very prolific district in its own right within the overall Sierra Madre trend. And because of that, we have very good infrastructure access. You can fly into Topia. We can drive to the project site. We have a power line within 3 kilometers. And so as we build out the project, we'll be able to take advantage of all of that and build it up fairly quickly. Now I mentioned high grade, and Potrero is a good example of that. There is a historical resource, and I have to qualify that by saying it's not compliant. We haven't done enough work on this to prove up that resource, but this is based on underground sampling and past production records, and it showed the average grade at about 10 grams per ton. Gold equivalent, which is about 870 grams silver equivalent, which is a very, very good grade. There are three mines that lie along a 500-meter strike, and this is where the previous work had been focused, going back to the 1980s. But as with many small mines privately owned in Mexico, there was no drilling. There's never been any modern-day exploration on this project. And so this is something that we see as a huge opportunity, because we know that there's a very strong system there. It follows the regional northwest-southeast trend, and a very good grade. So we can get back underground working in this very, very quickly. And at the same time, we can be refurbishing the plant that exists on site. Now, this was built in the late 1980s, closed down in 1990, but not for technical reasons, for tax reasons, as I understand it. But there's been nothing done on the project since then. And this plant can be refurbished relatively easily and quickly at fairly low cost. We estimate somewhere between $1 million, $1.5 million. So it will need some new equipment, crushers, pumps, electrical work, some balls and liners for the mills, but the overall infrastructure is in place. And one of the important things about this is that because it's an existing processing site, it's a disturbed site from an environmental standpoint, and so it will need or rather it won't need some advanced environmental studies and that type of thing. So our ability to re-permit this is very good, and we should be able to get permits in fairly short order. So probably within about a 2-year period, and get the plant back up and running. So with that, I'll just a couple of quick slides on the Red Lake area, where our other projects are located. Most people are familiar with Red Lake in northwestern Ontario, very well-known, prolific gold-producing area. And we're just to the east of the actual Red Lake belt itself in what's called the Bertucci Belt, and very close to the Springpole deposit that's being developed by First Mining Gold. Springpole is about 5 million ounces, just under development right now. And our Argosy gold mine is only about 10 kilometers away. The North Birch project is immediately adjacent to that. And as I mentioned, that's earlier stage, but just looking at the Argosy mine, it hasn't produced since 1952. It did produce about 100,000 ounces at a grade of almost 13 grams per ton. So very, very good grade. And we own 100% of this, subject to 2.5% NSR. And that's something that's obviously important because we can just hold this until such time as markets improve, and it's worthwhile going back into to develop this some more. There have only been about 72 holes historically drilled on the project, despite its production history, and nothing since 2004. But what's really important here is that when it was in production, it was only mined down to about 270 meters vertical. And in this part of the world, in the Canadian Shield, the vertical dimension is actually the greatest dimension. And deposits in this sort of geological environment can often extend to a kilometer or more, thousands of meters. And so we know from previous drilling that the mineralization does extend below that 270 meter depth of the previous mining. And you can see that on the three-dimensional model here. And in addition to that, there were only 4 veins mined in the past, whereas the drilling has clearly indicated that there are multiple veins in the system here. We've mapped out about 13 or 14 of them, and this is something where we also think that we can build a fairly significant high-grade resource once we get back to working on this. Just briefly on the North Birch project, immediately next door, you can just see on the inset, you can see the Argosy gold mine just to the bottom right. And then the North Birch project is actually modeled on a folded iron formation type gold deposit, which is a very significant type of gold deposit, much like the Musselwhite mine farther to the north in Ontario, that's just being sold by Newmont at the moment. But that's an 8 million plus deposit now, and I actually worked on the pre-feasibility study for that back in 1994. I worked on developing the geological model for that deposit. So it's something I'm very, very familiar with, and North Birch is modeled on that. So we think it's a great target, and as I mentioned, we've got 8 kilometers of strike length here, and looking forward to getting back in there and doing some more drilling to follow that up. So just in summary, Pinnacle is basically creating a new company with a proven business model whereby we start with small-scale production, expand the resources, expand the production, build the company out of cash flow as much as possible rather than continuous dilutive financings, especially in a market like this. Our management has a successful track record in doing this. We have a very solid board with a lot of depth there. And we are focused on the Americas, looking primarily at Mexico and northwestern Ontario at the moment, and with a focus on high-grade underground mines, which have a lower capex, better profit margins, and a better buffer against metal price volatility, and also with a smaller footprint and being easier and faster to permit. So with that, we're confident that we'll be able to build a successful company here, and encourage anyone to reach out to us with any follow-up questions. Thanks very much for your attention.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bob. Another individual on time. Great to see. Love it. Thank you for the great presentation. You enjoy the rest of your day. I'll bring on our last presenter here, Jeff Ackert from Cascade Copper. He's the president and CEO with an extensive career that spans major mining companies and includes co-founding C3 Metals, where he led successful copper exploration programs. Jeff, I'll let you get your screen set up. It looks like you are already ready to go. So best of luck. I'll start the timer.
Thank you very much, Kyle. And thank you for the invite and to share the time with a great bunch of explorers that we've just heard from. Hopefully I can keep up the good news and get everybody excited about Cascade Copper. Cascade is focused on copper exploration in Canada. We've got projects in BC and Ontario. A new company started just over a year ago, and we've got a very tight share structure, which I'll start the slides with just after we speak about forward-looking statements. So be aware that there will be a few during this presentation. As mentioned, the company is young. We've got very little shares outstanding at the moment. We're looking at maybe just 37 million shares issued and outstanding at the moment. A few stock options and warrants out there, but fully diluted, very small. Market cap is just around 1 million. And we'll just move on to our team. The team obviously is important, as we've heard from previous presenters, that a management team and a geological team is important for getting things done. A little bit of background on myself. I'm a geologist. I've been working in the business for how many years now? Probably over 40 years. And basically cut my teeth in Canada with gold exploration, and then moved over to West Africa for gold, and into East Africa for copper. Been working also in Canada and Jamaica and a few other places, Peru, for copper systems. So a bit of a background there. Shannon is the guy with the brains and the geological acumen. He's our VP of exploration. Yana is our CFO, and she's a fractional CFO and works for a few other companies. So we benefit from sharing the costs there. Darcy, Allison, and Sam, all part of the board of directors. Great team to have as support. So what we'll do is we'll start with what our exploration focus is, and really, when anybody looks at whether it's an investor or a company, you have to say, okay, where do I want to go? What do I want to look for? So the jurisdiction, the commodity are very important, obviously. And we like Canada, we like BC, and we like Ontario, just because it's a stable. They're both stable jurisdictions. We can get things done. Obviously, there's mines that are being made in both of those jurisdictions, so we know we've got an end game. And capital raising is helpful because we can take advantage of flow through shares. And the commodity, I think everybody knows the writing's on the wall that copper is going to be in demand for many years to come, just with the reduction in carbon incentives and the transition to electrification and so on. That is what's really driving the copper market these days. So keep that in mind. Luckily, on most of our projects, we also do have gold, silver, and molybdenum, which are accessory metals. And I'll show you some of the results in some of the projects here. You can see the significant numbers there. Geology, obviously the geology is important in any jurisdiction. Where are you finding gold? where are you finding copper, where are you finding silver. So we're very cognizant of what's been found in the area and what we hope to find there as well. So we'll show you a couple of maps here. Our projects, we have 5. We have 4 in British Columbia, and you can see them listed here. We've got 3 porphyry systems, one in Rogers Creek, one at Copper Plateau, and a new sort of really greenfields area at Fire Mountain. I'll give you some more details on that later on. And Bendor is epithermal system, and with gold prices the way they are, why not have a gold project in the portfolio as well? The one in Ontario is interesting. It's a bit different. It's a VMS style, so higher grades, lower tonnage, but still quite very good potential there. So let's look at our BC projects to start with. We're looking at the western side of British Columbia, relatively close to Vancouver, centered around the Pemberton area. And the belt there, we call it the Cascade Magmatic Arc. And it's a host to several big deposits. And you can see some of them that are outlined here. Taseko's New Prosperity, over 1 billion tons. We've got Giant Copper, 45 million. Glacier Peak down in Washington, and Middle Fork, all very large, and then Margaret down further south. So these are all within this same belt, same age rock, same types of intrusives, same types of porphyry systems that are coming through here. So this is why we like this particular area. And it's been relatively underexplored. There's been a lot of people that have been looking at the Golden Triangle for good reason, but we see lots of potential in this area for porphyry systems, and maybe a little bit more copper-centric rather than gold-centric, which is what you find maybe in the Golden Triangle. So some of the highlights here, we've got them listed on the side, but I'll go through them a little bit more detail as we go further along here. So we'll start with the Rogers Creek copper porphyry system, and we like it the best. It's basically our drill ready target. We'd like to get in there this year and drill on this system, and I'll show you why in a couple of slides here. Again, the access, as other presenters have mentioned today, the access is quite important. It keeps costs down. So at Rogers Creek, we can drive right to the site. Within about an hour and a half to 2 hours from Vancouver, you're sitting on these roads and looking at these rocks in the area. So numbers and historic drilling they've been relatively good, not super high, but they really do give us an indication of what potential is there. So we're happy to follow up on some of the earlier drilling that was done. We've done a lot of airborne geophysics. We've done a lot of soil geochemistry. We've done some IP, and we put that all together. And that was really one of the first things that we did when we got the project in our portfolio, is we compiled everything and tried to put it into a 3-dimensional compilation. MAG and IP inversions that give us an idea of the depth potential, looking at the associations between the geochemistry on surface, the IP, some of the drilling that was done. And one of the things that we've also done here, and we try to do on every one of our projects, is the hyperspectral analysis of the alteration. And what that is, as Ian mentioned in his presentation, is about a vector. How do you vector into the center of these projects? So we think that with all the data plus the hyperspectral, it's really giving us a great idea of where things are. So we're focused on what we call the Target 1 area, which is a copper, gold, moly porphyry system. And this is a sort of a characteristic cross-section of what we're seeing at Target 1, which is this area here with the blue breccia zone. And on surface, we're seeing some incredible numbers. You can see 23 grams of gold, 0.5% or more copper, 200 ppm or grams per ton silver. Over on the Target 2 area, again, some very, very high numbers. So what's happening here is the porphyry system is leaking these the metals that are coming up to surface and accumulating. And with the inversion modeling that we've done, we can see some of these areas that are obvious targets. So this is a compilation of some of the surface sampling, the geochemistry, and some of the historic drilling that was done at Rogers Creek that shows where the target area is at target 1. And I'll show you the next slide here that really drives it home. Now this is an inversion model, and we've peeled back the sides of the mountain, and we've basically suspended the IP and chargeability and resistivity anomalies sitting in space. And that's really where the target is. And why we like it so much is not just the IP part of it, but also the magnetic lows that are associated with the alteration package that has come in with the porphyry system. So our target here at Rogers Creek is, looking through the mountain. Now the mountain is transparent, and we're looking at these higher chargeability areas, which we are interpreting as the more mineralized part of the porphyry system. And we're sitting at maybe 200 to 400 meters below the surface. So we would have to drill with some fairly decent longer drill holes, but we figure that we're more than likely to hit something quite substantial as we go into these drill target areas. So that's basically the story at Rogers Creek. We hope to be in there in 2025. And who knows, we'll see what goes on there. Our next project that we're looking at is Copper Plateau, and it's within the Quesnel terrain, central South BC. Merritt is here, Princeton, Penticton is over here, and Kelowna, if you're familiar with the Okanagan Valley, it's just a bit west of there. But we're surrounded again by big companies, big projects. Copper Mountain Mine is a producing mine, over 1 billion tons. Highland Valley, Teck's Highland Valley, over 1 billion tons. And you can notice the grades here. They're not super grades, but they're economic in the BC climate. Kodiak Copper has got a project just right next to us. So in good area, it's a great spot for finding copper porphyry systems. Brenda Copper Mine was an older mine that was run by Noranda back in the day. So what we've done here, again, we've taken a lot of the historic data, we've modeled it, inversion modeling. What you're looking at here is basically historic drill holes plotted with IP chargeability. And what we're seeing is a very strong correlation, but also there were limitations in the IP survey, and we're seeing that there's mineralization past what the limitations were on the IP. So we see lots of potential down strike or down slope from the porphyry system that we see at surface. So lots of potential there. And what I'd like to do is just draw your attention to some of the historic drilling numbers that we had in the database when we acquired the project. Some of the numbers are quite stunning. This is the length here. So 19 meters, 59 meters, 27 meters, and some of the grades are over 3%. These are copper equivalent. So we are using copper, moly, gold, and silver. The numbers are quite conservative as far as today's prices are concerned. But it just really shows you some of the numbers that we're seeing here. So we know that there's some high-grade components to this porphyry system. We haven't drilled it on our own yet, but we do plan to do a little bit more work on the ground and then set some drills on this in the near future. Again, we've got lots of potential here. We've got geochemistry off in 2 areas that have not been drilled. So looking forward to getting in and doing some follow-up work here. So lots of upside on Copper Plateau. Again, some numbers from the ground, some surface sampling, 11.5% copper, 1 gram, over 1.5 grams of gold. And you can see there's some good silver as well with the moly. Moly is pretty high here. We're seeing molybdenite on a lot of rock samples on surface and also within the drilling. And as I mentioned before, the hyperspectral mapping has helped us vector in on some of these areas. And this is just an example of something we've done on the ground from surface sampling. It gives us a great idea. And this really is telling us that, the center of this zone is really the best altered and probably the best porphyry system there. So we're hoping to follow up along strike and down plunge of that particular area. As I mentioned, Fire Mountain was Greenfield's property, and it's got similar components. to the, I've got about a minute and a half here, so I'll get going. Fire Mountain, greenfields, but lots and lots of areas to look at. I mean, it's just spattered with showings. High-grade gold, copper and gold in samples on surface. Has not seen a drill hole. So again, something that we'd like to get on, perhaps not drilling this year, but getting targets ready for 2026. Copper and gold numbers on surface. Some great samples. Here's one that over almost 2% copper, 4.5 grams per ton gold. So Fire Mountain, and then Center Fire is our Ontario project, and I'll probably finish off with this one. It's in the Sioux Lookout Dryden area. It seems to be a hotspot these days. There's a couple of companies that are doing a lot of work here, Next Gold and Dryden. And maybe more importantly, we've got Centerra Gold has come in on two of these companies and put an equity interest into them. So the bigger companies are looking at these areas. And that's something that could be an exit strategy for us too. We've got lots of projects, big tonnage projects that are really important for the bigger companies. So we're hoping that we'll attract the attention of some of the major or mid-tier producers that see something that we've got and see what they like. So I'm going to skip Bendor because it's something we haven't done a lot of work on, but it's sort of in our back pocket, and hope to get to do some groundwork on it this year. So in a sort of summary, our planning is to do some drilling this year, add some value to the company, and to reward shareholders for coming in early. And this one last thought here, and there was just a graphic that came up the other day. And I think the implication on this is that gold and copper have really been following each other, since maybe early or mid to 2022. And now we see a big disconnect. And does that mean copper needs to come up to match the gold performance? Perhaps yes. So keep an eye on copper, keep an eye on Cascade Copper, and please feel free to reach out and talk to myself or Shannon. Look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you so much there, Jeff. I let you go a couple minutes over because you're the last individual.
Yeah, one of the benefits, eh? Thank you so much.
No problem. Great presentation. This, for anyone watching, is being recorded. I see everyone's contact information was on their slide, so please feel free to reach out to the companies directly or message Six, and we'll be happy to connect you guys as well. Thank you for watching, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.